What's up, guys? My name is Mastermind, and today I will be going over the top 5 solo queue jungle champions and their strengths, weaknesses, and when they are most useful. So let's get started. First champion on my list is Kha'Zix. So Kha'Zix has once again made his return to the top spots in the jungle. While his late game W was nerfed, he's still strong as ever on the Summoner's Rift. I'm going to be touching a little bit on what you should evolve first, what makes him strong, because there seems to be a lot of confusion as to what is best to evolve and in what order. So maxing and evolving his W enables his ganks to be a little bit more effective by massively slowing his enemy. Although evolving W first is the typical go-to, evolving E is better if the laning phase has already begun to end around level 6. Kha'Zix is an assassin per se, and mainly is the king of 1v1 next to Lee Sin. With his Isolate passive, Kha'Zix is able to single out targets and deal insanely larger amounts of damage. His ability to counter jungle is strong, but only under the vision of wards. If you attempt to invade the enemy jungle visionless, it is possible for you to get caught and chunked down fairly quickly. So Kha'Zix is relatively strong, but I think that something I should bring up is one of his weak points. His weak point, as it stands, is Kha'Zix is quite the glass cannon, so he'll die quickly if caught. So the second jungler I'm going to be touching on is Rammus. Rammus is by far one of the scariest junglers in solo queue right now. With his tanky abilities along with his insane CC and fight potential, Rammus dominates all other junglers. Gaining a percentage of his damage from the armor that he builds, he is at best when he is against pure AD teams. His W, when active, can prevent large amounts of damage from being received and enable Rammus to survive longer fights. Level 18 Rammus is when he is scariest with all his abilities maxed. That being said, most champions are of course at their scariest when they're at level 18, but Rammus much more so because his taunt and his Q and his W are all extremely viable at level 18. His taunt, when maxed, can single-handedly catch enemy carries into sure death. His ganks can either be extremely successful or a flop depending on if there's an awkward minion wave or something during your ganks. You can, as Rammus, change the tides of fights with your taunt by luring the enemy targeted into the heat of the battle. Weaknesses? Rammus currently has very little, but he can become largely insignificant if he is falling behind or if he builds incorrectly. The next jungler I'm going to go over is Vi. So some may disagree with me, but Vi is still a top 5 solo queue jungler. With her insane gank potential and ability to single out enemy carries, Vi carries a large kit in solo queue. Arguably, Vi has one of the worst clear times, levels 1 through 3, but starting your W brings the most effective start to her weak early game. Now when I say weak early game, I mean really pre-second buff. Once Vi obtains her second buff, she's completely able to annihilate the lane she ganks because she'll have her Q, her W, and her E. That being said, she's only effective if you are able to land your Q, which you should be getting third, not second. A trick to having the best level 3 gank is not using your Q until you know you have a solid shot or the enemy blew their flash/ghost. My advice to beginners for Vi is to max E instead of Q if you're unfamiliar with her Q and how to effectively land it. Vi's largest strength is the ability to snowball lanes into an unwinnable scenario for the enemy team. Vi also has the ability to shift tides of lanes with her immense gank potential, but has a very large downside if she is unable to win lanes. Vi, as strong as she can be, relies heavily on being ahead. If a Vi jungler falls behind the enemy jungler, she struggles to be effective as she could be. In that case, if you are behind as Vi, the thing you should not be building is Triforce. Triforce is something you build when you're ahead with Vi. Just go tanky. Fourth champion I'm going to go over is Lee Sin. Lee Sin has always been a fan favorite in the jungle due to his high skill cap and insane playmaking potential. But we all know he is an early game champion to the max and falls off really hard as the game moves deeper. Much like Vi, Lee Sin ganks have the ability to shift tides of lanes and snowball his team into victory. Some people believe that building damaged Lee, such as going Hydra, is more effective, but tanky Lee Sin is the most useful and efficient come late game. Building Lizard and going tank enables you to have efficient early ganks while becoming the team's tank later on in the game. Lee Sin's strengths are revolved around his ability to close gaps and counter jungle very effectively. With his Q's ability to condemn the targets based on their health, he can effectively take objectives quickly by using his Q and smite strategically. If Lee Sin is shut down early and unable to gank lanes, he is rendered extremely useless and a large problem comes into play. But we all know Lee Sin's true weakness. All Lee Sin players have Lee Syndrome. Just don't press Q. Lastly, I'd like to touch on Amumu. Largely underrated in the jungle, Amumu brings a shitload of CC and gank potential to the table. With his Q acting as a stun and hook, sort of, he can catch out enemies and gank from a distance. What makes Amumu so effective is his ultimate's ability to practically win team fights. He locks down the enemies instantly that are within the range of his ult, enabling his allies to shift the tide of the fight. His ganks are strong and his clear times are very solid, but his major flaw is mana dependency. If he is counter-jungled early and shut down, he will be unable to gank and constantly be needing to back to base to maintain his mana. Amumu is more effective in low elo, bronze through gold, but that's because junglers in that elo are unaware of how to properly counter the enemies. Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, and if you'd like to see more in the future, subscribe. It means a lot. Every like is a vote to burn Teemo. I'll leave you with my tip of the day: ban the shit out of Rammus. Have a good one.